Welcome, everyone. My name is Darren Reffitt. I'm the product marketer for Claims Center as well as Autopilot. And today we're here to talk about how to use automation to revolutionize your claims journey with Autopilot Workflow Service. Before we get started, I am going to remind you, you're going to hear this a lot, but every session that looks at any type of forward-looking statement is not a commitment to deliver any feature or functionality on any particular timeline, even though they all represent our best estimate of when things are going to be coming out. And with that, I am going to get out of your way, and I am going to introduce Vincent.
Awesome. Great. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everybody, for coming to our session. So let me introduce myself really quickly. My name is Vincent Lee. I lead the product development and strategy for Claims Autopilot. Joined with me today is Ant Swindells, the VP of Early Access and Adoption. He's going to introduce himself a little bit later today in the presentation. For now, he's going to look really great standing right next to me. But I'm really happy that you guys are all here. It's the last session, so once this is done, you guys can enjoy yourselves and have a great dinner. For now, let me talk to you guys a little bit about my experience here at Connection. So last year, I was here around the same time talking to a bunch of customers like yourselves, and I asked them, at that time, Autopilot was just generally available. It was just made generally available, and I asked, hey, are you ready to start using it? And do you want to start beginning to reap the benefits of Autopilot? And many customers at that time said, it's great, but we're not quite ready yet because we're not on cloud, or hey, we're still in the middle of our transition. But fast forward a couple more months, and I've started to get a lot of questions now from customers who said, hey, Vincent, can you tell me, how do we start adopting Autopilot? Can we start using it? We're ready now. And so I thought this would be a great connection session, is to talk a little bit about how you can get started with Autopilot, how to think about automation, and what you need to do to really start your journey to having an automated claims experience. Very briefly, our agenda for today, we're going to talk a little bit about an introduction to Autopilot. You've probably heard it millions of times, so I'm not going to go very deep into it. We're going to describe a couple of use cases that you can use Autopilot with. We're going to briefly discuss the benefits and value that you can get out of Autopilot. And Ant will actually go over some reasons why you should adopt now, why now is a great time for you guys to start using Autopilot, as well as providing some information about all the great assets that we have that are available to you to help you guys start using it the most effectively. What's the big deal about automation? It's one of those things that when it works well, you really don't notice it. You have things like smart thermostats, self-driving cars that take you places. You have AI-powered chatbots that give you information and can help you provide you support, whenever you want. But a lot of times we take these things for granted, and these things are things that have really transformed the world. And the pace of change that this is happening at is happening faster and faster. So people are actually calling this the fourth industrial revolution. And it's where you have things like artificial intelligence, automation, integrations, data analytics, all working together to transform the world that we live in and the way that we do business. And we think that this is really going to redefine the way that our claim systems are going to be used in the future. So you saw a glimpse of our vision for the future. So in Mike's keynote this morning, he talked a little about, and Amy had demonstrated, our solution for claims. In the claims vision and roadmap session, Zach talked a little bit about our vision for claims. And so in that vision for claims, we believe that claims are going to be fully automated. And when adjusters are involved, it's only going to be for exceptions. And at that point in time, when adjusters do get involved, we believe that the claim system will be able to provide the contextual insights that they need, more conversational interactions, more guided experiences, as well as a dynamic user interface that provides them with the data at the right time. So how are we going to get there? And what we believe is that, how we're going to get there, I think Gen AI gets all of the news and attention. You probably have heard a lot about Gen AI already. But I actually don't think it's Gen AI that's going to solve the problems of the world. I believe that to have a great, strong foundation for our vision, it's going to take automation and intelligent workflows. And so that is our belief of what's going to actually be needed to achieve these goals. And the goals of having increased efficiencies, enhanced customer satisfaction, reduced leakage, those are the 3 key KPIs that every claims organization is aiming for. And to be able to have a meaningful impact on that, there's no greater investment that you can make except for automation that can actually have that great impact on these 3 key KPIs. So that's where I want to introduce you guys to the Autopilot workflow service. And it's an automation platform that's built for automating insurance processes on the Guidewire cloud platform. At its core, it's a powerful workflow engine that allows you to orchestrate complex claims processes. In addition to that, it provides a low-code workflow designer that makes it very easy for you to build these automations. And also, we provide automation templates that are available on Marketplace that you can download and be able to leverage when you're building these automations and not have to start from scratch. And in the future, what we're going to be coming out with is a claims toolkit that includes native claims-specific workflow objects that will allow you to build these workflows more easily. When we talk about orchestrating a claims process, let me just give you an example of what that process might look like. So when you start off, let's say an auto accident, the telematics in the car can actually be able to capture the damage, and those sensors can capture the damage and be able to send that information over to your claim system and trigger the creation of a claim. When that claim gets created, instead of being sent to an adjuster to manually handle that claim, it can go straight into automation. And Autopilot can take it from there. From there, one of the very first things it can do is actually do a fraud check to ensure that it's a valid claim. And assuming it's a valid claim, it can go further down automation and check whether or not coverage is verified and whether or not the damage, take the damage assessment data and be able to leverage that to ensure that the claim should go through an STP process. Furthermore, it can go into a network repair process where you can leverage a network repair vendor to be able to complete an appraisal, as well as being able to get the repair done and settled. As part of that process, Autopilot can also be able to approve the quotes and the invoices and also make sure the payment is made on time. And lastly, at the very end of the process, Autopilot can close the exposures and close the claims. So that's just one example of a claims process, but it can further be enhanced with additional capabilities, such as being able to update the claimant, send customer communications. It can also work with other ecosystem providers and vendors to be able to integrate with tow trucks or rental cars. You can also be able to leverage it to interact with the claimant and be able to send secondary intakes to be able to gather more information from a claimant and use that information to drive the automation of the claim. So what it comes down to really is that if you have the right data, intelligence, and integrations, you can automate almost anything with Autopilot. So at this point, people usually come to me and they say, this is great, the possibilities are endless. So can you help me understand, how should I start thinking about where to automate, and how should I start thinking about, the different types of processes there are to automate? So let's take a step back and look at, what are the 3 categories of processes that you would most likely face when you're doing automation. So the very first is a task-based process. So these processes are typically very simple processes that involve just a couple of steps. So some examples of those might be being able to do a rental car extension, or being able to approve and pay an invoice, or being able to just trigger a customer communication based on certain business events. The second type of process that you'll have when you're trying to automate is a straight-through process or a very low-touch process. This is basically an end-to-end process that doesn't necessarily involve a lot of manual interactions. So it's typically done with more low risk, low complexity claims where you can easily do a straight through process of the end-to-end claims handling, for end-to-end claims handling. And the third type of process that you'll be faced with automating is a complex interactive process. So the complex interactive processes are the ones where you'll have multiple touch points, and those touch points and interactions can be with an adjuster to make more complex decisions. It could be with a claimant to gather more information from them, or it could be with a third-party vendor to get information and status from a vendor to drive the automated claims process. So typically, those are the three main different types of processes that you'll be faced with automating. So when you're thinking about automating, one thing to realize, especially with Autopilot, is that it's very flexible. You don't have to automate an end-to-end process. You are able to actually break down that process, depending on what the process is. There's different ways to break it down. So take, for example, this process. You don't have to look at the details of it, but the point is, here's an end-to-end process, and this process is made up of multiple sub-processes. Each of these sub-processes is made up of multiple tasks. And so when you're thinking about automating, you can automate at any of these levels. You can automate at the task level, the sub-process level, or at the end-to-end level. And so it's not an all or nothing thing. You don't always have to think about automating the end-to-end process. So at this point, people will say, okay, there's still a lot of different options. Can you just tell me, Vincent, where should I start? Like, what's the best place to start at? And so, we've talked to a lot of customers. We've analyzed the different benefits that you can get from the different scenarios of automation. And, we have this chart here that kind of explains, what we think is the best place to start. And I think every insurer is going to be a little different, and there's going to be unique requirements to everyone. But as a general best practice, the best place to start is usually identifying those simple claims that can be straight through processed and being able to automate those scenarios. And the reason why is because if you can eliminate just a small percentage of your claims from the volume of workload from your claims handlers, that's a significant amount of value that you'll get. So that's a great place to start. Those are often not as complex to automate, but at the same time they produce a lot of value. The key traits of those types of claims that we're looking for to fit that process are ones where coverage is very easily determined. So as you analyze your different types of claims that go through your organization, pick out the ones where it doesn't take a person to analyze a lot of different data to be able to figure out, hey, should this be covered or not? So obviously, we want claims where coverage is easily determined, where liability is not much of an issue. You'll know straight away that this is something that where liability does not really matter much. You also want to make sure that just in general, you don't want to have claims that take a lot of analysis or subjective thinking. And so those are the characteristics of the types of claims that will fit that type of a profile. And our suggestion would be to start with a POC or a small pilot, get your feet wet, and from there you can always improve and refine your automated processes. So what I wanted to do was provide you guys with some examples of what those claims might look like. So depending on your line of business, here are just some examples of those types of claims that are good candidates for STP. So I'm just going to pick out one. For workers' comp, for example, right? Workers' comp has a lot of very complex types of claim types, but on the more easily automated side are the ones that involve minor injuries or maybe medical-only claims. So that's, for example, something that you might want to look at when you're thinking about automating. So now, the benefits of automation. Everyone is familiar with automation being able to help you improve your accuracy, efficiency, cost savings, and customer satisfaction. I just want to remind everyone of the other benefits that it also provides. And that includes being able to improve your employee satisfaction, the scalability, because you don't have to scale up your resources when claims volume increases. Compliance, being able to be more compliant with different regulations, and also the environmental impact benefits, from being able to eliminate potentially some paper-based processes and replacing that with automation. And lastly, when you are thinking about automation, it's a very good opportunity to actually optimize your claim processes. You don't want to necessarily optimize and automate a poor process, so many insurers are taking the time as they're thinking about automation to think about, hey, what can we do to actually make our processes more efficient and actually take this time to actually improve them as well. So it provides a huge opportunity to be able to relook at the processes that you guys have internally. What I wanted to do was talk a little bit about what kind of efficiency gain you'll get from automation. And this is a common question that I get from everyone is, tell me, Vincent, what type of gains will I get if I implement the Autopilot? And the answer is, it really depends. It depends on your own situation, but I'm still going to try and give you guys something to work with here. And so we asked our value consulting team to come up with a financial model that you guys can use to help evaluate and estimate the type of gain that you would expect. And so this is a simple model. I'm not going to go through all the calculations. You guys will get this presentation afterwards, and you can download it from our Connections website. And you can figure out how it works. But basically, in this example of a carrier with about 300,000 claims per year, and maybe 400 adjusting staff that are working those claims, they can expect up to 14% efficiency gain. And that's based on eliminating 5 manual tasks and replacing those 5 manual tasks with automations. And those 5 manual tasks is just 19 minutes of time. So think about it. Just by saving 19 minutes of time per claim, you're able to gain 14% efficiency gains. And that's equivalent to approximately $4.6 million of worth. So that just gives you an idea of the types of gains that you might get from automation. So now, you guys are probably asking, well, should we get started? How can I get started? And this is a great segue for me to introduce Ant, who's going to come up here to kind of take you guys to the next part of the presentation.
All right, thank you, Vincent. Appreciate it.
Awesome.
Was that applause for me coming on or him going off? So, as Vincent mentioned, I work as part of product development. I work for Diego, actually, for my sins. And I'm really dedicated to accelerating service adoption as kind of early champions and evangelists of all the new capabilities, and workflow is obviously one of those. Just in case you were wondering, I'm based out of Charlotte, North Carolina, as you can tell from my deep southern accent. And I've been working at Guidewire for about 14 years. A lot of it has actually been spent in the field doing implementation projects along with yourselves. So I do have a team who've really got a unique mix then of people like me that have got a mix of technical industry and product expertise and also extensive customer and field experience. So we're there to kind of make sure that when these capabilities go GA that these guys are working on, they're ready to be adopted at scale. Okay, so that's a huge focus of my team. So it won't surprise you with that little brief introduction that I now want to shift the focus to talk about adoption and answer these questions that are on the slide that I know every single one of you in the room is dying to ask. So I just preempted it, okay, because I could read your mind, okay? All right, but before I do, okay, open your phones up, right? Go into the app. I just want to ask, just have a quick poll. It is the last session of the day, so I've got to make sure everybody's awake. And keep in mind, I'm going to ask a poll at the end as well, so you've got to stay awake the whole time. But given what you've heard so far about the excellent introduction that Vincent's done and the sessions you've seen, let me ask you to, what your plans are for adopting Autopilot workflow service. It'll give us a bit of context to who we're talking to in the room. So just going to give you like 30 seconds to go in the app. Don't be shy. Just press a few buttons and answer the questions. Are you excited? You're going to adopt it within the next 12 months. I'm kind of excited, but I'm not really sure when we're going to start. It's not really relevant to me, or it's cool, but I can't use it because I don't use Claim Center or Policy Center. So, sorry? The polls are not coming up, Darren? Apparently the polls are not coming up. Okay, we'll do it the old-fashioned way, right? How many people are excited about are going to adopt it in the next 12 months? Yes, wow. Awesome. Okay, how many are really excited but they just can't start yet? Okay. How many think it's a really bad idea? Okay, good. So the poll is good. We're moving on.
Apparently I need to open them, which I...
Okay, that's okay. We just did the poll, and the survey says everybody's super excited, and most people are going to adopt it. Life is good. Okay. And I also know that everybody's still awake. All right, so let's get into the details of what I want to talk about here. Why adopt now? Right? Now, the key thing is, this thing has been generally available since December of 2023. It came out with Innsbruck, right? And since then, we've been issuing updates to this literally every few weeks. So yeah, we package them into actual releases, but at the end of the day, we're able to, it's the same with all of the core services, we're able to deliver updates very, very rapidly, okay? So what that's done is provided us with a really solid foundation that now exists and is ready for you to use, okay? Now, the product roadmap, as we've been talking about, is going to deliver incremental value and expand into policy use cases. So we're not stopped here, we're just continuing to evolve, but it's ready for you to start now. And another key thing is by starting now, you can avoid increasing technical debt. If you continue to do things the old way, then you're going to have more things to kind of move forward later. So start now, but start small. Go low risk. Just go in, build something, try something, learn, and iterate. You don't have to do it all at once. You just do little pieces the way that Vincent was talking to you about. There's loads of training, collateral, and examples and content available. And I'm actually going to show you some of that stuff unless my PC dies, which it did. So, well, that's okay. We'll log back in. And then, you know, we've also got some customer success stories already, including some customers that have actually gone live into production. Okay, so very cool. Now, you might still be thinking, well, that sounds great, but I could do this stuff in InsuranceSuite workflow before. So why should I bother actually changing? I could do all the same stuff before. Well, if you're doing the workflow in InsuranceSuite, that's absolutely true, but you're going to write reams of Gosu code in order to do it. Hands up how many people like writing reams of Gosu code. Okay, we have some strange people in the room, but that's okay. So there's really no native integration with Guidewire Cloud Components when you're doing it the built-in way. It's tightly coupled with InsuranceSuite, and a key thing is when you make changes to the workflow, it requires downtime in order to actually deploy those changes. So let's fast forward to Autopilot workflow, right? The shiny thing on my right-hand side. This really promotes business and IT collaboration. It's really fantastic, and we've seen so many examples in the other sessions where the customers have been coming and saying, yeah, we've actually now got the business and IT talking to each other. This is so cool, right? We can actually speak the same language. It's amazing. We've got low-code workflow designer based on industry standards, and guess what? These guys are smart, but they didn't invent BPMN. That's an industry standard. So if you have people there that know that already, then getting skills for people to be able to do this is not going to be as difficult as perhaps what you might have found writing reams of Gosu code. We've got native integration with other Guidewire Cloud components, and the killer feature for me is you make the changes, we deploy them, and you see them, right? And you can test them very quickly. So that zero downtime is a huge, huge benefit. And not to mention, because it's built on the microservices architecture, that you've got high performance and scalability. So you're kind of crazy if you don't do it, right? Makes sense. You were sold already, weren't you? I'm just kind of reinforcing what you were already thinking, okay? Now, the other one was like, hey, I don't want to be first. I kind of love those stories about the 51 percentile things that we've been hearing about, right? Well, actually, we've got 10 plus customers actively implementing Autopilot today. And we're predicting, based on adoption stats and also the poll that we had in the room, that number's going to go way up over 40 by Q2 of 2025, unless you were all like just putting your hand up to be polite, okay? The first customer's actually gone live, that's SGI, and they're already looking at expanding usage. And beyond that, we've also got our partners excited. How many people are a partner in the room? Oh, the partners have already gone. They've started the parties already, apart from a few in the middle. Okay, so that's what I'm holding you back from. I'm sorry, but literally we have like 20 or more of our SI partners already certified on Autopilot, and we'll actually talk a little bit more about the partner cases in a second. So you're in good company. Now, it wouldn't be good unless we did a bit of a live demo. So I'm just going to do a very brief live demo. Now, I was going to do it really, really live, but my team said to me, we don't trust you, okay? So the real reason is, no, not because I couldn't do it, right? That's what they said to me. They said, you just need to keep it down to like 2 or 3 minutes. And the way I talk, it might take a long time, okay? So we're just going to play through this demo. There's going to be some nice soothing music going on bit underneath, and I'll kind of over talk about it. If you don't like what I'm saying, just listen to the music, okay? Oh, no, we're not flipping on there yet. We're just going to play the video, okay? So I'm going to go to the next slide, and off we go. So we're going to go through and we're going to demonstrate business process automation with low-code tooling, okay? So we're going to go into the workflow designer and we're going to create a new workflow from scratch for a car rental reservation. And all we're really doing in order to create this workflow is we're dragging and dropping components from the workflow designer. We're keying in, we're capturing details about events, decision points, we're capturing properties. Notice nobody's writing any Gosu code here. We're literally dragging and dropping components, and it's using BPMN, so it's very familiar. It's very easy to have a business conversation around what's actually going on here. It's super cool, very, very simple to actually do. So we built a very quick workflow here around the car rental reservation. And then once it's actually finished, we click Save, and it now automatically is running in the background. So we flip over into Claim Center, and we click into the claim, and we can see that it's actually automatically, workflows running in the background and doing the automated processing. Super cool. Now, that's great, but it's also, we've got pre-built templates that you've heard us talk about that allow you to actually give you an increased productivity in getting started. So you can go out to Marketplace, look for things like personal auto physical damage workflow template, download that template, and then take a look at what that looks like. It's a good reference for you, but it's also a good starting point. And if you say to yourself, well, actually, I don't do personal auto, it doesn't matter because I'm told by my guys that about 80% of that is reusable for other lines of business, okay? So you go in there, take a look at the documentation, and see the documentation is going to explain to you how to get started, what it basically does, what is the use case, etc. It's all there for you to go find, go search for it, download of it, take a look. It's going to save you loads and loads of time when you do your own actual use cases. Okay? So just rounding out the brief demo, it's really accelerating development, fostering that collaboration. Here's some quotes from some of the customers around some of the huge benefits that they've already been realizing from adopting Autopilot. So SGI, the customer that's gone live, it's got a great picture, that guy. Claim Center, lowering claim costs. And not just that, but our SI partners have also been very excited, as I mentioned, and they're also seeing huge benefits in the adoption of Autopilot. So that kind of concludes the piece of the demo. Just to round it out with saying that it is available today with Claim Center as generally available. Policy Center is coming in Les Lanas, and then Billing Center is also on our roadmap. So we're not stopping, we're continuing to evolve. So then the next thing I want to talk about is like adoption planning. So it's all great. You say, great, this is awesome, okay? I'm excited, but how long is it going to take me to do this? All right? Now the good news is that what we've been doing, how many people knew that we had estimation guidance on Guidewire Community? Okay, I think like maybe 5 people put their hand up. Okay, you go to Guidewire Community, you look, we've been publishing guidance on what does it take to adopt these new capabilities and services. So how much effort do you need to kind of budget for, right? So we publish our estimation models into Community via the Update Hub. And I'll just cut to the chase here that, in actual case, you can get some value out of this in as little as 6 weeks. Okay, that's the kind of smallest amount of time that we've kind of seen to kind of get up to speed and do a simple case. But let me go and show you some of this collateral that's available live. So if we can flip over and show my laptop now. Here's the Update Hub that I'm talking about. So this is Guidewire Community, and here you can see a link here to Guidewire Estimates. Okay? So if you click the link to Guidewire Estimates, it's going to occur to a page like this that explains to you how to use the estimates. What do we mean by story points? They're all relative sized estimates. And then you can even come in here and download the whole user story catalog that gives you estimates for how to adopt all the different insurance suite, policy center, claim center, etc. But we've got specific guidance provided for specific services like the Autopilot workflow service, which goes and tells you, hey, how do I think about adopting this, right? Well, how do I plan and budget for this? Because you don't want to wait, you want to make sure you put it in your budget cycle, otherwise it's going to delay adoption. So I strongly encourage you to go and take advantage of that estimation guidance. There's the Autopilot workflow stuff. And then the documentation, we've got a significant amount of really good documentation that's there. So if you go into the documentation and search for workflow service, go search for the workflow designer and the workflow administration. I'm not going to drill into those, but there's a lot of good reference materials there to get you started. Also in the documentation, so what my team does is when we go and we work with some of the early adopters, we kind of get all those early learnings and we publish them as what we call product adoption resources, and we publish them into the product documentation. So into the documentation, if you search for things like product adoption resources, here you'll see adoption guides in there that actually talk you through, they augment the rest of the documentation, and what they do is they say, hey, how do I actually get started? How do I provision this thing? How do I, how do I implement this on my projects? How do I go about doing inception for these things? So we've provided all of that guidance for you to help you know how to do it, and it kind of augments the documentation. So we're doing that for all of the core services, not just Autopilot, okay? We've also got technical solutions in there to give you some examples, and we've got frequently asked questions in there and stuff. So strongly encourage you, just go take a look at the documentation and see this material. We already talked about being able to download the templates off Marketplace. There's a lot of content. It's really our vision now to start publishing a lot more templates, not just us, but also our SI partners, and get much more content published into Marketplace, which gives you a great starting point. Education. So if we go to the I'm here in the education portal, and you can see that there's a whole bunch of instructor-led courses that you can kind of subscribe to and take, but there's also a self-paced course that was recently launched around how to develop with Autopilot Workflow Service that you can just go and play. Okay, so strongly encourage you to take a look at the education resources. And then the last one I'll show you here is how do we streamline business process automation with Autopilot Workflow Service. Is just a blog that's published onto the developer.com, but there's a lot of other collateral out there in the developer community where people are actually publishing a lot of guidance for you. So reams of collateral. Let's flip back to the slides. All right, so the next slide. So when you get these slides, all of the things I just showed you, there's links on these slides that you'll be able to kind of look at all that collateral that I just demonstrated to you there. And then, but that might say, well, that's great, Ant, but that was a whole load of information, and I'm just overwhelmed. I'm drinking from the fire hose. What do I do? Okay. Well, the good news is that we've also got advisory type help that's available too. So Guidewire Professional Services have put together some essential services for you that really you'll get some experts that you can kind of take. Instead, they're not running your whole project, they're just coming in and they're helping you to get started. They're saying, hey, let's work through the initial use cases, let's help you with some examples and just provide you some kind of guidance and mentoring to actually get started in the right direction. Hugely valuable, okay? But also our SI partners have got offerings that I told you that a lot of them are trained, and you heard mentioned in the demo session today in the keynotes that we actually ran a Guidewire pitchathon, and we challenged our SI partners to say, hey, come up with some real-world industry problems that you can solve using Autopilot Workflow Service. And we said, oh, this will be interesting. Let's see what happens, right? And all of a sudden, we got like 40 submissions, and we're like, oh my gosh, right? This is kind of crazy. So then what we did is we narrowed it down to 5 semi-finalists, and then the top 3 that are highlighted here, which Guidewire, X1F, and PwC, are actually showing these live in the demo theater tomorrow. Okay, so strongly encourage you to go and look at those submissions and see what they've actually come up with for real-world use cases. So here, there was a session earlier today, so if you missed it, I'm sorry, yeah, you've missed out. No, just kidding. There's a recording that's going to be available that you'll be able to go and play back. I strongly encourage you to do that. There's some really good information that augments what we've said here around, that was run by Shaker earlier today. There's the demo theater stuff. It's at Tuesday at 1:15. Please go and take a look at that. You're going to see some real cool demos, and also probably, I think they get a chance to vote, don't they, or something, at the demo theater?
No, voting has already happened, but we'll announce the winners of that Autopilot Pitchathon.
And then the last one, there is a claims advisory group on Wednesday at 9:30, okay? So they're the 3 sessions. Now, I said I'd end with a poll. Maybe it'll work, right? But given what you just heard, I'm going to give you a chance to reconsider your answer, okay? Given what you heard, are you going to accelerate your plans, or you didn't really listen to me because you're already sold, or we've really put you off?
All right, so question 2 is open. I also left question 1 open. If you would like to let us know what your answer would have been so we can figure out the delta, I would appreciate it as a personal favor, because I saw Ant's brain working, thinking Darren needs to be fired about 10 minutes ago. I really want to keep this job.
And we love you, Darren, so it's all good. Okay, so we're going. Can you just play a little bit of background music in the back while we're waiting for the poll results? Okay.
That's kind of Twilight Zone.
Right, how are we going? Is anybody answering?
Yes, they are.
Did we put anybody off, Darren?
So we have 84% are saying same answer. I was sold. 20. Actually, that's now down to 75%. 25% are saying that given what I just heard, I might accelerate my plans. Yes. No one has said that they've gone backward so far.
This is good. Okay.
Which by saying that someone is going to do it just to be funny, because that's what I would do.
Yeah. I'm just going to tell you that Vincent's going to be in the bar later, and anybody that's accelerating now is willing to buy drinks for. He told me before. So,
I'll definitely buy drinks for you guys.
All right. So yeah, let's because we're running out of time, and I want to allow a couple of time for a bit of questions. So I'm going to do something that it's hard for me, but I'm going to relinquish control back to Vincent.
Thank you so much, Ant. So I'm just going to close this out here with the 3 key takeaways. So if you guys don't come out of the session with anything else, just remember these 3 things. So the first thing is that we believe that automation is going to play a bigger and bigger role, and really it's going to be a key differentiator. So those insurers who really embrace it, I feel like they're going to have a bigger opportunity to be able to widen the gap for efficiency, cost savings, and customer satisfaction versus those insurers who don't embrace it, right? So you want to start now. There's no reason to wait. So I know some of you might still be in the middle of your transition, but take the opportunity now to look at your claims processes and analyze and start identifying the claims, the opportunities that you have for automation, so that when you are fully transitioned, you can start your projects without much delay. And lastly, as Ant has shown, we have a lot of assets and resources out there to help you with getting started with Autopilot. And if those assets, those do-it-yourself assets don't work for you, you can work with us and use essential services as well. And lastly, if you forget what those assets, what available help is out there, you can always reach out to your customer success managers and ask for some guidance. And they'll be able to give you guys some direction as to where to get some of this help. So with that,
questions.
I will give you a quick update. We are up to 35% on accelerating. Yes. And as predicted, one person decided to answer that they changed their mind. Whoever that is, you are my soul brother.
And if that's somebody on my team who's in the room, there's going to be big trouble, okay? So.
Does anyone have a question? I will run the mic as fast as I can. I think we have someone on the other side as well.
Okay. Hey.
I have a question.
Okay.
So what does this cost?
So Autopilot is actually included with your ClaimCenter Cloud subscription. So it doesn't cost anything additional extra. If you have ClaimCenter Cloud, you'll have Autopilot.
That is a good question.
It's a good answer.
That is a good answer.
Yeah. A lot of people are wondering, what's it going to cost me? If you have ClaimCenter Cloud, you'll.
So you got it. So as long as you're on N-2, you can get it, right?
So the kind of the other way to look at it though is that if you're on self-managed, you are not able to use Autopilot. So you do have to be on cloud.
What are the usage limits that go along with that?
So that's another good question, because in the past we had usage limits on Autopilot, and so we had only given a certain amount of usage, and if you go over, it would have costed something. But now, as of Las Leñas, we're actually eliminating those usage limits. So there are no more usage limits on Autopilot. So you can, if you have ClaimCenter Cloud, you have it, and you can use it as much as you want.
So if you weren't convinced Las Leñas is awesome already, there's another reason why Las Leñas is going to be awesome. Does anyone have a question?
You got one in the middle here.
All right.
Darren.
Thank you very much. Is there a versioning concept implemented in Autopilot in order to support evolvement of those automated workflows?
So I think that if you build out, so we use LCM, so it's our versioning control management software, and basically, everything you build out is versioned. But when you make modifications to it, you're making modifications to the live version of Autopilot. So what that means, what people usually want to understand is whether or not, hey, can you download like a new template and have that automatically reflected in my automations. It will not automatically update automations that are already in use. So when you have built out something, you have the latest version of your own automation, and it will not overwrite it. Does that answer your question?
I think we have time for one more question if there are any remaining in the room.
You only get one.
No.
Okay, me again. Let's assume we have a manual interruption of the claims process because we have a service request to a car glass repair shop, and we are waiting for the invoice in order to restart the process of automation again when the invoice arrives. Is it possible to trigger an Autopilot step to retake the automation process from an external trigger, not only from ClaimCenter?
That's something that we're actually working on. So being able to trigger Autopilot processes from external systems is something that's coming on our roadmap. But in general, the interaction between automation and manual and back to automation, that is definitely supportable with Autopilot.
But thank you.
Awesome.